Hey everyone, this is Jimmy Cook, Director of Production and Publishing for Vineyard Worship UK and Ireland. We release new music on the first Friday of every month. The Hidden Place is Vineyard Worship's monthly single for September 2020. This song explores the deep work of formation and transformation that can only happen in a hidden place with God. The record features renowned Vineyard Worship leader Samuel Lane, whose powerful vocals lift the beautiful lyrical landscape to another level of meaning and personal experience.
In the hidden place, I can be myself, I'm safe, and I feel no shame. I'm secure in your embrace. All the striving ends. I don't have to bear the weight in the hidden place where you speak to me. And I'm ready to follow you in faith, to follow you in faith. Yes, have your way. God, have your way.
Check out The Hidden Place and all of our singles wherever you listen to music.
You're listening to the Ferment podcast, conversations about worship and transformation. Today we have another edition in our conversation series with Adam and Heather Russell.
What up, Heather?
Hey, Adam.
Welcome to my office.
Thanks.
You're on the couch.
I'm happy to be here, as usual.
I can tell. You're smiling and everything.
Unusual.
Unusual.
Whatever.
It's good. Well, we're doing another podcast together.
I know, and this one's super fun.
Tell everybody why this one is super fun.
Because we are doing a question and answer. So yesterday we put on the Instagram page that you could ask us anything.
That's right. So we're doing an Ask Us Anything episode here on the Ferment, and the questions are fun.
Oh man, you guys did great.
Yeah, but I've noticed a couple themes in the questions. Looks like a lot of people want to talk about parenting and politics.
And one outlier who wants to talk about pie.
There's pie, parenting,
and politics.
And politics.
With Heather and Adam.
Oh man. Probably going to get canceled after this. Oh. Hey, how do you want to do this?
How about I read one, we riff on it, you read one, we riff on it.
I love it. I love it. Do you have one you like already?
Well, I mean, I feel like we should lead off with the pie question, right?
Lead off with the pie question.
Someone asked
Start light, go heavy.
I like it.
Okay.
It's like an appetizer.
That's right.
All right. If you could eat one...
Dessert for appetizers?
That's the only way I roll.
Okay.
If you could eat one flavor of pie for all of eternity, what would it be?
If I could eat one flavor of pie for all of eternity, what would it be? That's kind of a hard question because I don't really care about dessert that much.
I know it's the worst part of our marriage.
But you do care about dessert.
Deeply.
You care a lot about dessert.
I deeply care.
I can take it or leave it. So why don't you answer that?
I'm going apple pie all day long.
Apple pie. American classic. Mm-hmm. I think I'm gonna sidestep this question and say, not pie. I'm very uninterested there, but that date cake thing that your mom makes.
Oh yeah, that's good.
I don't know what that is. What is it called?
It's a cake made of dates. I don't know.
I know that sounds terrible. Like you're probably at home listening to the podcast going, this doesn't sound good. This is legit good. It's
kind of like a burnt brown sugar.
Yeah.
Something. Yeah.
I don't know. I love that. So that would be my vote.
Okay.
I'm out on the pie. 2 thumbs up for the date cake.
Okay, it's your turn.
Oh, it's my turn. My turn. I'm hoping that we could let's stay light for a second, okay? Someone else is asking us, tell us again about how the spiritual life is like beer.
Okay. I'll let you lead off with that one.
How is the spiritual life like beer? I don't know. I mean, maybe we should probably just have this person on the podcast.
Definitely.
Well, this person has been on the podcast. Yeah, Jesse Dooley, you just got to come back and talk to us about how the spiritual life is like beer. I think I'm going to have to sidestep that again. And we could talk about how the spiritual life is like wine. I'm much more interested in wine.
But I did say if we should break away and start a rival church called the Brewery.
I don't know what you mean.
We're the Vineyard.
Why are you wanting to start a rival church? Why can't we just stay on the same team?
Oh, my goodness. With all this question sidestepping, we should talk about politics soon.
Yeah, that's right. Let's just get right into it. Lots of people were asking questions about politics. Mm-hmm. One person asked very succinctly, Christ and American politics, ?
That is great.
That's great. Mm-hmm. It's probably my favorite question. I hope you can hear the sarcasm in my voice. I was talking to somebody a couple days ago about this because I think if you're a pastor right now, you can't really avoid it. Mm-hmm. It's just up in the air and it's in our faces all the time. And I think the pastoral dilemma with politics, and it's probably this way on a lot of things, but with politics in general, is that if you say too little, a given, whatever political thing may be up in the air at the moment, if you say too little, you could be complicit to just going with the flow, or you could be complicit in
not caring
or giving strength to the system,
or not being relevant.
Yeah, or even being complicit to a oppressive system, I guess is what I'm trying to say. There's just some things. There's some political footballs that are being tossed around right now, and they have this dynamic where if you don't address it, like you said, you could be either seen as not caring by certain people in your church, or it could be that you could just be giving an oppressive system a pass. Mm-hmm. But then the other side of it is, and this is where the dilemma comes in, if you say too much, well, you could end up so deeply offending people who need to hear the message the most. Like the very people who need to hear the message the most become so offended, they literally can't hear you at all. So I think the first thing I want to say about, Christ and American politics is, wow, shout out to every pastor out there who's trying to work this out, because it's kind of like you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. Mm-hmm. So there's some of that. Well, the other thing I'm also noticing too is the degree to which everything I say, either in a sermon or written down, for some people is filtered through an American political lens.
Right.
So people come to, my words, and maybe, maybe I shouldn't so hyper individualize it, but I'm trying to tell my story here a little bit. But it doesn't really matter what I say. The degree to which their own soul has been formed by the left-right binary, by Dems and GOP, by whatever the CNN and Fox News talking points are, it's remarkable, because people can hear me preach a sermon about Jesus, maybe from the Sermon on the Mount, and what they're hearing is either is in some ways the ways in which it agrees or disagrees with this other lens, this other worldview. And so it's been pretty interesting how in the last year, some people have been a little bit offended by preaching because this other cultural worldview was, I'm going to say, primary.
Yeah. And I would say this is true for me. I think it is you too. Like, we stay informed and care about things and are knowledgeable, but that isn't the driving force of our like decision making and how we plan our day and who we care for and what we do, like the political landscape. And so I think for so many people who are deeply steeped in that, it's just, I don't know. It's like we're from two different planets.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I wasn't really aware of this so much as a young man, but then as I became a little bit older and as I spent more time with the Bible, I'll say that, more time with the scriptures, more time with the New Testament, especially the Gospels, and then even especially Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, I think all of that created in me an awakening towards the primacy of what Jesus is actually asking for. And so Jesus is not just saying, can I be one option among many in your life that has some influence, but Jesus is asking for everything. And I'm not saying that I've arrived. I'm just saying I'm aware of where I want to go, which is that the kingdom of heaven is a kingdom, and the kingdom of heaven has a king, and all of my allegiance belongs to Jesus. Like, I ain't pledging allegiance to anything else other than Jesus. And so, especially in the last 5 or 6 years, the left-right political binary has become increasingly gross to me.
Yeah, and I can't buy into the anxiety that if one side wins over the other, we're doomed, like whatever side it is.
Yeah.
It's like Jesus is still on the throne. There's still hope no matter who holds whatever office. Sure.
And I mean, I guess some people are probably listening and going, well, that's all well and good, but depending on, who's in power, it could be extra good or extra harmful for certain kinds of people.
No, it's true. And I hear that. I can hear that maybe the things I'm saying are from a position that, is not held by everyone. Like, everyone doesn't live the same life. And so I can see how that may not be well received.
Yeah, no doubt. But yeah.
But I don't
Christ
know.
in American politics.
I guess the answer is,
Well, I think it's more than that. I think the answer for me is, I think Jesus has politics. To use a phrase turned slightly different. I think the politics of Jesus are something different, and I want to lean into that. And the truth is, the politics of Jesus, they rub up against right politics and left politics both. Mm-hmm. And, I'm not saying I want to be a middle grounder who's, just sort of like passively looking for peace. I'm not talking about like milquetoast religion that doesn't have a sharp word to say to both sides. And, I'm not here to pretend that, that compromise is really what it's about. I think it's like wholehearted devotion to Jesus is what it's about. Mm-hmm. And I think Jesus has politics. And I think Jesus's politics looks something like his Father reigns on the righteous and the unrighteous. That Jesus is asking us to look after the least and the lost and the lowly. And that all through the Old Testament, God says, save the edges of your field for the poor and the foreigner. And these are echoed in in Jesus' own life. Like, I think there's something there, and I want to give my heart and I want to give my life and my formation to that. Because here's the thing. Every kingdom of this world is going to pass away. Like Rome used to be an empire, now it's just a city. And one day, who knows, maybe this empire we know as America will be here. Maybe it won't. History says it'll be replaced by something else. But the one thing that will never be shaken, this is what the book of Hebrews says, there's a kingdom that will never be shaken. I want to give my life to that. I hope people don't think that's a cop-out.
Yeah.
But that's really where I'm at. I'm kind of uninterested in all the others.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you want to say to that?
Not really.
Great. It's your turn.
I'll lighten it up.
Are you lightening it up? Okay, go for it.
What album is giving you the joy right now?
What album is giving me the joy? Well, you and I might agree on this one.
I actually think we do.
Yeah. We've been listening to Kathleen Edwards' new album.
Oh, man. Total Freedom.
Total Freedom. If you don't know Kathleen Edwards, Kathleen is a alt-country rocker from Canada.
Mm-hmm. We have loved her since 2005.
That's right. We saw her in Austin City Limits way back in the day. The kids were asleep. We used to stay up really late on Saturday nights, put the kids down, stay up late, watch the new episode of Austin City Limits. And one time, this redheaded woman from Canada shows up with her band on Austin City Limits, and it blew you and I away. Like, just on TV, she just had so much fire.
Yeah. Oh, and she still has it. But it's cool because she's made some incredible albums, but then she quit.
Yeah.
And she moved back to her hometown, and she opened a coffee shop and called it Quitters.
Yeah.
And now she's back. And I love her story. I love her songs. I just love her.
Same. Okay. Yeah, it's her first record in 8 years. Yeah. And I think it's got some really good stuff on it.
It's great.
Yeah.
Favorite song from that album?
Favorite song from that album? It's hard not to love Options Open. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's probably the hookiest song on there. But I think right now my favorite song is Glenfern.
Yeah, I was gonna say Glenfern's mine.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that song's about her relationship with her first husband.
Maybe. I don't know.
She's
probably listening.
Kathleen, listen. Kathleen, if you're listening, I know you're probably listening to this Christian podcast right now. I just want to say, Kathleen, we love you, and we will pay you small sums of money to come and play a show at our house.
Very small.
But it will be fun. I promise you will not have more fun anywhere else. All right.
All right, it's your turn.
My turn? My turn. Let's do this. This is a good question. I like this one. How do you change culture while still honoring legacy or heritage?
Ooh, that is a good question.
I thought that's a great question. It's a great question because if you're in church leadership, especially if you're not planting a church, but even if you are planting a church, you're going into a city with a story, right? But especially for people who are not planting a church, and maybe you're working in a vineyard church. And one of the things that's happening in the vineyard right now is all across the United States, lots and lots of boomer pastors are retiring, and new people are becoming pastors, and worship pastors who maybe led worship for 10 years are becoming senior pastors. Like, this is just a dynamic. And so I think that's a really great question for people who are living in that kind of space.
And in the vineyard specifically, it's extra relevant.
It's very relevant to our story. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is, in some ways, the vineyard struggle, right? Because in the vineyard, beyond just where we are now, maybe 40 years in, we also have this huge story that was not only influential to us, but influential to the world. And we had a charismatic leader in John Wimber. And so we just have all this amazing things that happened that got us going. And now we're in this moment of what I would consider to be generational change. So I think this has implications for us as the Big V Vineyard, but then also as maybe individual pastors and leaders at churches. So why don't you go ahead and tell us how do we change the culture and honor the legacy?
Well, I think I'll flip it around and say I think one of the biggest pitfalls is to equate maybe heritage with the way things were done rather than getting at the heart of what was driving that.
The why.
The why.
Yeah.
So maybe I think the answer is to look at the why and really isolate and identify the why. Mm-hmm. And then you can bring that. It's easy to bring a concept like that has been so distilled into present culture, but to try to translate like cultural expressions from 40 years ago to now, it just feels dated and heavy, and sometimes it just doesn't translate well. But if you get down to that why, I just feel like that's easier to translate.
Yeah, I think that's good intuition. The other thing I would say is, this is much more low to the ground and basic. I would just say, actually know the story.
Oh, yeah. That would help.
It's one of the most basic ways to honor the legacy is to know the story of where you're at and what happened, or why those people did what they did. Who are the players? Like here at the church that you and I pastor, we didn't found the church. We were here when it started. We were teenagers, right? And I took over 13, almost 14 years ago. And part of what's really important here, and I've changed a lot around here. We've changed everything. Nothing that we do now is what we used to do. But we do know the story, and it's precious to us. And, every time we have a newcomer's lunch, I always tell the story of how we started the church.
No, it's really good. We have these 6, what do we call them? DNA pieces.
Yeah, little DNA strands of our church.
And they're things that we've held true from the beginning all the way through. And it helps us as leadership too.
Yeah.
As well as new people coming in to understand why we do what we do.
Yeah.
And it's a great reminder for us of why we do what we do.
Yeah.
But these are the things that are Vineyard values.
Yeah.
And we talk about why this is a value.
Yeah.
And then kind of demonstrate what it looked like back in the day and what it looks like now.
That's
so,
right.
for example, we pray for people for healing. Well, back in the day, when this church started, it started because we were praying for some people with cancer.
Yeah, there was 2 sisters who both had breast cancer at the same time, and some people in my family knew about them and literally just started a Tuesday night meeting to pray for these 2 sisters. What ended up happening is this church, Vineyard Campbellsville, accidentally got planted because a couple of my family members wanted to pray for these 2 ladies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so praying for the sick.
That's in our DNA.
It's part of who we are.
That's our story.
Yeah, it's our heritage. But it looks different now.
Yeah, it looks totally different.
We don't have a Tuesday night prayer meeting or an all-night Friday prayer meeting where people come. But at the end of every single service, you say, if you are sick, if you're sick in your body, if, whatever, we want to pray for you. Yeah. And we have people available. So we take that core DNA piece and we bring it forward. And it looks different now, but the why is the same.
Yeah. I think the other thing I want to say, and I think that's a great distillation. The only other thing I want to say is, in addition to knowing the story, get to know the people who lived the history, like wherever you're at, and know their names. I think it's also really important to tell people the names of who made things happen at your church. Mm-hmm. And so here, I can't talk about Vineyard Campbellsville without talking about Dick and Diane Salmon.
Yeah.
I can't talk about this church without talking about Bobby and Ann Tucker.
Well, and it takes the stories out of the realm of legendary and it makes them actual historical stories.
That's right. That's right. By the way, I just love that question, though. That's good. Pertinent question. Mm-hmm. Okay, you got one? Let's do it.
Oh, it's me? Oh. What book impacted your walk the most?
I mean, I think I've talked about this book on the podcast before, but I think the book that has impacted me the most is a book by Robert Capon. It's a book called Kingdom, Grace, and Judgment. It is basically him riffing on all the parables of Jesus. And I don't think any book has touched me the way that one did. Mm-hmm. And if you're preaching, if you're deeply interested in the Bible, if you are ever going to preach one of the parables of Jesus, you cannot do it unless you read this book. It's one of those deals where I read it and I realized, oh, I don't know how to read the Bible at all.
Well, I remember when you got that book, I think I heard you tell everyone we know about it. Like, it was impactful.
Yeah, man. So good. And I'll just give one more bit of a commercial for it. I love it so much because Capon is he's an amazing writer, for one. So one of the things you need to know about me is I hate pastor books. In general, I just hate them because it's like, they're just not great. They're not well written often. And Capon is such a good writer. He's so on point. His prose is great. But the other thing that's great about Capon is he can write in such a way that'll have you laughing out loud. Like, it will make you laugh out loud. And then on the next page, he'll punch you in the gut. And you might cry your eyes out. So there's just something very emotional, visceral, and I think winsome about his writing. And so even though the book is, I think, deeply theological, it's wrapped in a package that is literary.
Yeah. It's
kind of like John Steinbeck's East of Eden, but it's a theological work.
Well, that was going to be my next question.
Oh.
I was going to ask you, playing off of this, well, what work of fiction has impacted you? Because I feel like novels impact my perception of everything as much as any, scholarly
I'll just throw it back to you. Like, what novel do you love?
I love A River Runs Through It.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Man, I think that's a beautiful, plus he does a great job of weaving theology in with fly fishing.
No,
and
it's
the
killer.
Brother dynamic and the family dynamic. I love that book.
Yeah, same. I read it every year.
Norman MacLean.
100 pages, no chapters.
Mm-hmm.
Just hit it.
And I just want to tell everybody that the book that currently has impacted me the most, and I think has deeply impacted you as well, would be Steve Cuss's book, Managing Leadership Anxiety.
Yeah, we read that as a staff, and I thought it was really great. It opened our staff up.
Yeah.
In ways that haven't happened.
It's been great.
Yeah, and it's given us some tools and language for talking about what's going on inside of us. Mm-hmm. And I think it's given us permission and tools for living a much more open life with one another.
Mm-hmm. So Steve was on this podcast. So if you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to it and then read that book.
Yeah, I actually think that the episode I did with Steve is top five episode ever.
I do too.
Yeah, it's really good. So
huge.
Shout out, Steve.
Great job.
I know that Steve and Kathleen Edwards are listening. I know you are.
Yeah. Let's just keep calling out names.
Let's just do it. Let's do it. Here's a fun one. How much would I have to pay you to get a tattoo on your face?
Oh my gosh. No. We've already been down this road.
I don't want a tattoo on my face.
You wanted one on your neck.
No, I do. I still want one on my neck.
That's a funny story, though. So Adam decided he wanted a tattoo on his neck. And whatever. Do whatever you want. I don't want one on my neck, but have at it. So I had the appointment. Was getting ready to go. And then Rowan was 4 at the time.
Yeah, he might have been 4.
Yeah, and he lost his biscuits when
he had a meltdown.
Don't do it, Dad. And then so Adam got it in a different place.
Yeah, I did. So I just didn't. And
then he came home and Rowan, typical Rowan fashion, was like, "Why didn't you do it?"
Yeah, he's like, "Why is it not on your neck?" I'm like, "It's not on my neck because you were crying. That's why." I'm trying to try not to break up the family.
So what do you think, Ad? Are you going to get a face tattoo?
Not a face tattoo, but a neck tattoo. I think that's.
Is that your next move?
That might be. It might be. As I get older, I got to stay rad.
And you really feel like that's the way to do it, huh?
I think it could be a way to do it.
Okay.
Just imagine me when I'm 85 and I'm wrinkled and I'm tatted from head to toe. You know what the grandkids are going to say?
Dad, do you work at the circus?
No, they're going to say, Granddad is freaking baller.
Are they?
That's what they're going to say.
Cool. All right.
I promise you they are.
Well, I hope that happens for you.
It's going to happen. Gonna happen.
Oh, is it my turn?
I think it is.
Oh, you got off with the face tattoo one?
Whatever. There's a lot of them.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Who do you want to interview on this podcast? Who's your dream interview?
Dream interview on the podcast? Oh, maybe several.
Yeah.
Several. Number one, I want Beth Moore on this podcast.
Me too.
I'm just putting it out there in the internet. I tweeted about this a few weeks ago, and Twitter tried to help me, but we just still didn't make the contact. So,
I mean, if you don't follow Beth Moore on Twitter, you are missing something.
Well, and I just want to say why I want to interview her.
Okay.
Because for me, and maybe I've been wrong about Beth Moore, right? So this could just be like my own perception. But my perception of Beth Moore is, I mean, she's clearly this Bible teaching lady in the Southern Baptist Church. A Southern Baptist church, by the way, that doesn't want women preachers. So right off the bat, I'm interested. Like how have you walked that out? But then B, in the last year, Beth Moore has just been straight fire on Twitter. Like, I don't know if you guys have followed her, but she ain't having it. It's like, I don't know what happened. Maybe she was always like this. But I just noticed about a year ago, Beth ain't having it anymore. And it doesn't even feel like she's not mad. She's just not having it. Mm-hmm. And whether it's about white supremacy, or whether it's about a woman's place in the church, or whether it's about the brutality of politics, or whether it's, whatever dumb thing that Trump tweeted lately, she just ain't having it. And I just think this is so great because the denomination that she is probably forever attached to, she's running in some ways oppositional to them.
But everybody loves her.
But that's what I'm saying. So it's not even, I don't think she's anti. I don't know. There you go. I'm deeply interested. Like, that's just a brave person. I think her voice is stronger now than ever.
I mean, I've done Beth Moore Bible study books. Like, I did my first one, I don't know, 20 years ago, I don't know, where she would teach these little courses. And they were great. But even now, she takes all of those years and years of Bible teaching and, I don't know, character formation, and she can hold topics like Christ and politics in such a great way.
Yeah. Well, there you go. There's one.
Yeah.
I also want to have an MMA fighter on here.
Oh my gosh, this is where we differ.
Why? What's wrong with that?
I don't know.
Okay, look, let me.
I feel like I can't.
No, let me explain this.
Go ahead.
I want to have an MMA fighter on there, and I know you think this is the Joe Roganization of the podcast.
That is absolutely what I said earlier. I was trying to avoid.
Okay. I know that's what you think, but here's why I want to have an MMA fighter on here.
Yeah, tell me.
And I know, and I want to kind of have a famous one. I want someone.
No D-list fighters.
No, I want an A-list fighter, but here's why. Because, I mean, presumably, if you're an A-list fighter, you've beat some people up. Okay. But here's what I want to get to. Like, how do you get there? Like, of all the things you could be, and if you're an MMA fighter, you're clearly an athlete, but it's not as though fighting is the only way you could express your athleticism or even your deep-seated need for physicality. Why violence?
I don't know, but you have it on at our house all the time. Man, the UFC is always on.
I don't know. I've just been interested in it. And I've never been interested in it before in my entire life. But in the last few months, I have. Like, since quarantine, there's been no other sports, for one thing. And Dana White kept the UFC going. I'm losing podcast listeners left and right now. Right? Unsubscribe. But I'm just interested. So I want an MMA fighter. I want Beth Moore. I want NT Wright. I want to ask NT Wright all the hard questions,
This sounds like one of those fun games where, like, if you built a dinner party,
that's
right.
You
have an MMA fighter,
yes.
Beth Moore, and NT Wright.
That would be a great start. That'd be a great start. Yeah, those are the people I want to talk to. I also want to talk to LeBron. Is that okay?
Have you ever preached a sermon where LeBron wasn't mentioned?
No, I preached lots of sermons where LeBron's not mentioned. I'm just fascinated by him because he's not young. LeBron is old.
Yeah.
He's old, and he's a winner, and he just keeps his edge, and I don't know how he does that.
Yeah,
I don't know how he stays interested, and I don't know. And he seems like a good person. Like he's still married to his childhood sweetheart, and he clearly loves his boys, and he's got a daughter and he loves her. And I don't know. I'm interested. I'm a fan.
Sounds great. I'd listen.
Yeah. I mean, I know that's not classic Ferment stuff, but like that's what I'm interested in right now.
We'll spin it.
We'll spin it.
Hi everybody, this is Naomi Latta with the Vineyard School of Worship, and I would like to personally invite you to Thrive, an all-ages worship leader training happening online this October. Each session is designed to equip worship leaders serving their local church and is soaked in kingdom values and practice, brought to you by instructors from all around the world. We invite you to join us and challenge you to grow with us as we learn how we as worship leaders can become non-anxious presences both on and off the stage. Thrive consists of 6 sessions in October, all 2 hours each. You can attend live and participate in live discussions, or you can choose to audit the course and learn at your own pace. We also offer add-ons if you are interested in songwriting coaching, spiritual direction, and more. Visit vsow.org to register and use the code FERMENT15 for 15% off your registration. This training is all ages, so invite yourself, invite your friends, invite your youth group worship team, and we can't wait to see you in October.
It's your turn.
It's my turn? Oh, here's one. Parenting.
Oh, yeah. We got a lot of parenting questions.
Yeah, several parenting questions.
Which is funny because we've always been a little bit resistant.
Yeah, I'm not a parenting guru.
Well, our kids are getting older now. So
they are.
It's a little more comfortable,
safer.
But
yeah, I mean, so far none of the kids have become axe murderers.
We were always like, let's just wait and see how they turn out before we talk about parenting.
I know, that's it. That's always been my thing. But here's a question. It's a parenting question. What's the best advice you've received about raising PKs?
Oh, I am a PK.
You are a PK. We are raising 4 PKs.
Yeah. 18,
almost 17, 13, 7.
Mm-hmm. Nope, 14, buddy.
14.
I know. I do the same
Parent of the year.
No,
right here. Gosh.
Yeah.
I get a pass.
You do.
Best advice. I don't know that I've ever received a ton of advice. I don't know. I just hold some of this stuff with such suspicion.
What? Advice?
No, like when people start like riffing on parenting, I'm like, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, even though I do know that there's good stuff out there. Okay, so let me just say it this way. Number 1, I am not a therapist.
Yeah.
You are not a therapist.
I am not.
Number 2, therapy is very good. I have been. It is great.
And all of our children are going to end up there.
And they very well may go there. That is all correct. I think what I would say about raising PKs, and this is maybe just the thing that sort of pops into my head right now, but I think the best thing that we have done over the years, and maybe there's been a couple good things, but the best thing we've done is we've found some ways to connect to our kids outside of church.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been a really great space where our interests can overlap. And it's been really wonderful. So for instance, athletics just in general, like the kids' soccer, like I think I get as much enjoyment out of it as they do. So that's been great. But then recently, going to CrossFit as a family, so everybody in the family goes to CrossFit, that's been so fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then we all ride mountain bikes together. I would just say, like, if you're raising PKs, yes, keep Jesus in your home. yes, keep some sort of like God dynamic in your home, and like find something that you can all connect on.
Yeah, that's good.
Because there's just something about fun, and there's something about play that really, really makes a family happen. And it builds that space where kids can feel like they enjoy you and you enjoy them.
Yeah.
And rather than it being like this parenting moment all the time, I think once we're in that place of like, I'm parenting you all the time, I think we're losing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think one thing that's super important that I know we've tried to do, hopefully we've done it, is even though we lead a church and we're firmly rooted in our faith, and we, this is very important to us, we've tried to leave room for the kids to have space and freedom and permission to ask the hard questions and to not dismiss those. I think that a lot of times for PKs, that is hard. It's just assumed that you're going to believe what your parents believe, and you're going to, by osmosis, get all of this stuff. And I think it's been really important to, ask our kids, well, what do you think about that?
Yeah.
And be okay if they don't think the same thing as us, and to not make them feel stupid because they're on a journey just like we are.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about it on this podcast a lot, but the idea of spiritual journeys is so important.
And it's for everybody.
It's for everyone. And one of the things that I've noticed, both in the Bible and in people's lives who have been a part of the church here and in other, religious or church streams that I've been connected to, everyone's on a journey. And everyone's journey is usually distinctive from their parents.
Mm-hmm. Right.
This is something that's actually really important. And so, like, as Christian parents or as pastor parents, you kind of have to realize we need a bigger frame. And so that's one of the things I've been struggling to articulate over the last 4 or 5 years, is this idea of spiritual journey and a bigger frame for our children. So, for instance, like my parents, they grew up, my mom was like borderline hyper-fundamentalist Church of Christ. My father was essentially a non-practicing Baptist, very uninterested in God. They got radically touched in the charismatic renewal of the 1970s, and they became, speaking in tongues, home group charismatics. And so their spiritual journey was radically different than their parents. In fact, probably their parents thought they were crazy, right? And so I grew up in this home that was fairly charismatic, lots of things that came along with that. And so my spiritual journey has been in line with what my parents experienced, but then there's been places of real divergence. I mean, the good news is I still love Jesus. It's just coming out in a different way. Yeah.
And I think that in itself is a really important thing as parents, to be like, it doesn't have to look just like.
It's not going to. It's like, it's not only does it not have to, I can tell you it will not.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But to look at the journey and keep the communication open.
Yeah.
And their journey, I don't know, it just may look way different. And I think that a lot of times PKs are expected to skip some steps.
Yeah, nobody gets to skip steps.
You don't.
Mm-mm. And that's a good word.
I don't know. Keeping the open communication. I've had some amazing conversations with our kids.
Yeah.
And there are conversations that I walked away from halfway, like, envious that I couldn't articulate the things that they could at that age. Yeah. I was like, oh man, the fact that you can think about this right now and say these things. Yeah. It did make me feel like, okay, we are establishing an atmosphere where there is some openness to discuss things.
Yeah, and that's the only way that people can mature, is in an atmosphere of openness and freedom like that. Because as soon as something becomes off topic, or as soon as something becomes taboo, then it takes root in our minds and hearts in a really negative way. As soon as our theology of God is X, and to think anything different.
Well, as soon as you start having
makes you a heretic.
Yeah.
Like as soon as like those really hard boundaries come up, man, it's really hard because at that point it's your inclusion in the family or your inclusion in the church or your inclusion in the faith is based on this really hard boundary. Then all of a sudden that sets us up for a relationship where there's probably a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear. Like I can't even have the conversation with you because the boundaries are so intense, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and the moment that someone would say, oh, I just don't know if I buy all those Old Testament miracles, and a youth leader or church leader would say, take that thought captive, live by faith.
It's pretty unhelpful.
Utterly unhelpful.
Yeah.
So it'll either A, shut it down for real, because, I was always a rule follower, and I just did that. I took that thought captive, and I just didn't let myself dwell on that until, eventually you have to.
Yeah, well, you can stuff, but it comes out somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah, and I've also just found that in atmospheres, whether it be home or whether it be at church, where the control or the thought policing is really turned up. Mm-hmm. It's just atheist factory stuff. It's like you want to know how to turn your kids or a bunch of people into atheists? Well, just
don't let them. Tell them that they're not allowed to think certain things.
Tell them they're not allowed to think certain things, but then also right along with that, figure everything out for them. Mm-hmm. Like the number one thing to do that will kill kids. This is such a weird paradox. Like on the one hand, we need to teach our kids the Bible, right?
Absolutely.
Like, so I hope you're not hearing me say, don't teach your kids the Bible.
No,
they need to know the Bible stories. Mm-hmm. But we don't need to always tell them what the Bible stories mean or that there's only one way to receive them. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. And one of the ways to really screw up, not just kids, anybody, is to have everything figured out for them. I realized like a huge part of my deconstruction was rooted in the fact that I grew up in a religious system where all the answers were figured out and given to me at like 12 years old. And then I matured into an adulthood, but I had theological answers that were still adolescent. Mm. And no one else could, my rational mind is looking at this and going, this is dumb. This is literally dumb. Of course, this didn't happen until I was in my early to mid 30s, and all of this stuff began to become real in a new way. And then I thought, oh my gosh, I'm losing my faith. I literally thought, just because I'm thinking differently here a little bit, I'm losing my faith.
Yeah, but the truth is,
I wasn't losing my faith at all. In fact, this is just something that happens to people. We grow, we mature, we start to realize the Bible is something different than maybe we thought it was. We start to see that there's lots of ways to read a Bible passage. There's lots of ways to rightly receive the words of Jesus. And I don't know, people, kids, human beings, we need a way to engage our spirituality where there's freedom and there's this sense of, like, I'm on a journey. I can explore. There are still things to learn. There's still things to know. There's still things to receive.
Yeah.
I hope that was helpful.
I think it's good.
Yeah. All right. Maybe a couple more?
Yeah.
Maybe a couple more?
Your turn, my turn? I forget.
I don't know. I'll go.
Yeah, because my phone died again.
Okay. This is a good question, too. What is the horizon of the church if we never really get over social distancing?
Dude, we talk about this a lot.
I know. Oh, I think we have to talk about it. Here we are. It's the plague years.
You would think that, but so many people, I think, won't entertain that thought.
Yeah, it may be a longer extended season than we think.
Right.
I mean, you and I were talking about this the other day when this all first started going down in March. We thought, 6 weeks we'll be back.
There wasn't a thought in my mind that would have been like, oh, we're not going to have school in the fall.
Yeah,
we felt so far off.
We thought that it would all be solved. Mm-hmm. And even now, they're saying maybe there's a vaccine in January. Mm-hmm. Or maybe, what did the CDC director say yesterday? 3rd quarter of next year.
Yeah. But the other thing is, even if COVID-19 is brought under control, this question, what if the social distancing part never comes back around? What if this has just changed the way that we interact?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm hearing this question on two levels.
Yeah.
On one level, there is the notion that maybe COVID-19, it's not a thing we're going to just snap our fingers and deal with quickly.
Right.
Maybe this vaccine is going to work. Maybe it's not. Who knows, right? Or maybe it's going to be another year coming, or maybe longer. We don't know. But then the other thing I hear in what you're saying is, what if the disruption of COVID-19 has already changed everything? And what if next week we all got a vaccine and we were, and I'm using air quotes here, immune, and we get our best band and we get our hottest sermon and we open the doors and everybody's like, yeah, I'd rather just go to brunch. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, or just if people were just no longer comfortable interacting with each other the way they had before.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
I think all these things are
possible. Yeah. What is the horizon of the church? Well, here's the good news. The good news is that the church is just tremendously adept at making changes. And I don't mean, institutionally, sometimes the church can be pretty slow. But historically, when you look at it, gosh, the church is kind of like, it's a survivor, baby. Mm-hmm. It just keeps going on. I know that this fall, we just ended 4 weeks of home groups. We had like a little 4-week home group section together. And we had people meeting at houses in groups of 10 with the worship leader and outside. And It was awesome.
They were wonderful. We said that they were maybe one of our best segments of home groups ever.
I think they were some of the best.
And they didn't look anything like they used to.
No, not at all.
Groups of 10, we capped it, like literally didn't let any more than that. Yeah. They met outside.
Yeah, no, what do we do in the winter? I don't know. But it does feel like that part of what we're headed to, if this extends for a good long while, is we're going to have a church that's smaller in terms of its gathering size, and it's going to have to become much more connected, much more of a web, rather than a big gathering on Sunday where everything kind of gets done. It's going to have to be much more shared, communal, volunteer. Even, it's going to have to be much more in homes. Acts chapter 2, 42 through 47. It's got to just be those verses, right?
Yeah.
And that could be massively disruptive to the current American presentation of church.
Sure, but this kind of nods back to our earlier question where we look at our heritage and the whys, and it might be expressed differently now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The other thing I do want to say is I do think we'll come out of this, though. I don't think it's going to be like this forever. I just think it's going to be longer than we thought. And I think it's going to feel like forever. I think it already feels like forever. I think a lot of people are sad.
Oh, I know they are.
In fact, I
am.
Yeah, in fact, same. I was on a phone call yesterday with a very, very good friend, dear friend, and he was asking me how I was doing, and I told him, I think I'm a little sad. And we were talking about why this person is also a pastor, and we were just sort of commiserating about the fact of, the last 6 months has just been more of a slog than we thought.
Yeah.
And then you add on top of it, if you can't be together physically, we all kind of jumped in with 2 feet into this virtual space, and I'm not sure how much of that I can do and preserve my humanity.
Zoom brain.
Zoom brain is a real thing. Mm-hmm. So, I think that's a great question. But I do think we'll come out of this, and it feels like it may be longer than any of us want. It's already been longer. I think it's going to be longer, and So the church is going to have to be nimble. It feels small. Smaller feels like the impulse, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All of the, I don't know, guidelines we've been under, everything is pointing us to smaller. And I just think that it'll probably look like that.
Yeah.
A little different.
Okay. Let's do one more.
Okay. Better be good. Here's one.
Yeah.
What's been the hardest season of marriage? Was it when the kids were little? Was it when they were big? Was it what? Hardest season of marriage.
Hardest season of marriage. I don't know. I mean, I think
we got married really young.
Yeah, so you should probably tell everybody that, right?
Really? We got married. We started dating when I was a freshman.
That's right.
In high school.
Yeah, you were 15, I was 17.
So we've been together a long time, which I know that poses its own, challenges. But in a lot of ways, we grew up together.
Yeah.
So we faced a lot of the hard parts of, teenage years together.
Yes.
And therefore we've just been together so long. I think it has been a real great thing.
Yeah, it has been. I mean, like any situation, there are pluses and minuses, right? Marrying young means, there's just some of the awkwardness or even difficulty of growing up that we did together, which I think was a strength for us, oddly enough. I think it meant that we stayed poorer longer.
Yeah, because we threw some kids in there real early too. Which
we did.
It slows down some stuff.
Slows things down. But there have been so many gifts.
Right.
Yeah, but in terms of like hardest seasons of marriage, I think the hardest season of marriage or hardest season of life would probably be when we had 3 small kids. I was running a business and leading worship. That just felt very chaotic. But when I look back on it, I don't have bad feelings.
No.
I don't even have stressed out feelings. I just remember you and I being really tired.
For real. I feel like all this sleep over quarantine has finally started to
catch us back up a little bit.
Us a little.
Yeah. No, so so when I'm reviewing that, even in my mind, I don't have negative feelings. I just remember being tired.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that hardest, if you equate hardest with most tired and most exhausted.
Yeah, that would be it.
It would be small children.
That would be it, by far.
But there's hope. They grow.
They do grow. And you know what? Those seasons actually are pretty quick.
Oh my gosh.
They're pretty quick. I mean, let me just, you know what? This podcast is.
We're going to sound like old people right now.
I know. Oh my gosh. Lord help me. I'm going to be an old.
I know what you're going to say, and we're old.
We're old. It's fine. But let me shout out to the moms. A lot of moms listen to this podcast. Some of you are young moms. Maybe you're preggy, about to have a baby, or maybe you just had to, right? I just want to tell you, Heather's so right. Like, they will grow up, and it's going to be quicker than you think. And you might have a 6-month-old right now who's not sleeping one bit. We did that. And you know what? In another 6 months, that little sucker will be a year old, so much bigger, and will be asleep. And you won't even know. Like you might be ready to pull your hair out right now, but it's going to be fine.
Well, yeah, and I've finally settled into this headspace with the little kids. Probably by the time the third one came around, I started maybe sort of getting my feet out, under me a little bit. Where I realized that there's always a phase, like a crisis phase, like either they have colic or teeth are coming in or they're learning to potty train or like it's always something. Yeah. And in the moment, it feels like it's going to be like this forever. And then it's over. And then you look back, you're like, oh, that wasn't that long at all. Yeah. And I think becoming aware of that and applying that to our lives in general has been super helpful.
Yeah, this too shall pass.
Yeah, it's like, even when we hit, as we call them, rough spots.
Well, that's what I was going to mention. Yeah, if you're talking about hardest spots of our marriage, you and I, we call them rough patches.
Yeah.
And I don't think any of our rough patches have ever been a year or years. Typically in our relationship, like if things start going poorly, like if we start relating to each other poorly, being short, not enjoying one another.
Mm-hmm.
That's usually something that, for whatever reason, seems to have a gravity or a cycle that lasts 2 or 3 months. And you and I've had, we've been married for like 21 years now. We've had several rough patches, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. It just feels like sometimes we get into those and I'm like, how did we get here? I don't even remember what did we do to get into this place? And you and I have even had a couple moments where we're maybe 8 weeks into not particularly being as kind to one another as we normally would. And we'll hit this breaking point and we're like, what are we doing right now? I love you, you love me. What are we doing?
And usually we laugh. Sometimes not, but
yeah.
But to be able to call it a rough patch has been helpful.
For whatever reason, being
just
able
like
to name
a
it.
phase,
yeah, to be able to name it.
Yeah.
It's a rough patch. It isn't going to last forever. I'm not going to divorce you. We're going to make it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Good to hear.
Good to hear. Hey, babe, I'm not going to divorce you.
Oh, let's end on one more fun one, shall we?
One more fun one? Is there another one?
I thought there was another one on here. Let's see.
All right, find it. One more fun one from our good friend, JMM. JM says, when are we going back to Jamaica?
Oh, man, not soon enough.
Not soon enough. Book it. Book it. When are we going to Jamaica? Can we go now?
Yeah, I think, we got a soccer game today. How about tomorrow?
Let's go to Jamaica tomorrow.
Okay, all right.
Everybody book your tickets.
Not yet. I don't want to yet.
You don't want to go? Look, if we're going to get Corona.
That is a good place to.
It's a good place to get it.
Oh, Lord.
I don't mean to make fun, but if we're going to get it.
Oh, we probably shouldn't.
If we're going to get it, let's go to Jamaica.
No.
Anything else?
Mm-mm.
All right, everybody. I hope this was helpful. We'll probably do this again sometime.
Yeah.
Let's do Q&A. If you want to hear from two people who are not qualified to tell you anything,
we're right here.
We're right here for you. Peace.
Peace.
Hi everyone, this is Melissa Keller, Events Director for Vineyard Worship. If you've been enjoying the podcast, I've got a couple of ways you could really help us. First of all, review the podcast on iTunes or the podcast platform of your choice. This helps more people find us. Also, connect with us on social media, Instagram at the Ferment Podcast and Twitter at FermentCast. Thanks for listening. See you next time.